And she said, I knew she had changed her major, so when I saw her, I said, what did you change it to? She said, early education.
Good for her.
I said, well, you know, when you need a job, just come look, and we always look for pictures.
You tell her, Mr. Green said that's an excellent choice.
Good. So,
That is an excellent choice. Well, that's a good shot. Discrimination.
and they won like 53 to 35.
They beat the crap out of them.
Yeah.
Beat the pants off of them.
Now, Patton's got some tall boys.
That has helped us.
Start saying, watch out. Slinging.
I wouldn't hit you if I saw it. Mr. Allen, you're gonna watch him. He'll get you in trouble.
Be messing with my time.
You could get him on camera, but you're gonna do another one.
I got it. I got it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get one and I'm gonna, how are you? I'm not feeling cold out. How are your babies? They're still not 100%, but they are so much better. Mason has a headache every single day. Still. Did you get it? Everybody in my house got it but me. I escaped it. I don't know how, but I did. You better be. I escaped it. I was like, and of course I'm the one sleeping with my kids, touching them every 5 minutes, you know, see what the fever is. But the Lord works in mysterious ways. He knows that we're sick. Nothing happened. Yeah. But you know, now that you think about it, James is like every day something. Either his head hurts or his stomach hurts. So I don't know if it's every single day. I just feed him. I'm giving him adult ibuprofen. I just gave it to him as I was walking out the door. He's laying on the couch. My head hurts. But yeah, James started it at my house. He came home from school one day. He said, my head hurts. And I just thought he just didn't want to do it. You're home, right? Yeah. And I was like, okay, well, you stay home from church. We'll go to church. And when I came home, his temperature was like 99. It was just going up. And then the next day it was like 101. But now that was about as high as his got. You know. Josh was at 104.5. Yeah. And I was like, cold bath, you know, doing everything. And then he's like, oh, you hate me. I was like, but this fever has to come down now. Yeah. Say it again. I don't know yet. I need to call and tell them we're gonna be in the Christmas parade.
So you say no?
My brain is between daddy's surgery and Christmas play and the Christmas parade, and
I think he's going with us Saturday.
is he? Because me and Mama are going out of town on a Christmas trip. Yeah, my brain is not working, so I need to call. Once I find out what time we're supposed to line up, I'll let you know.
Okay.
And what we normally do is we normally meet at Food Line
Well, I'll probably meet him at the church.
and let all of them ride.
Yeah. And we might go to the Christmas lights after.
Crazy.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
Rest is history.
How James,
Was,
so James has started Wednesday afternoon, so he only missed Thursday. And then he was better. Shannon started Wednesday.
oh, that'll be.
And then Thursday, Friday, Monday. And then Tuesday. He didn't make it but half the day on the trip. And he stood up. So he went back to Joshua. Joshua started like on Thursday. And he went back to school on Monday. Tyson, it's Friday. Which now Joshua is, so we were supposed to, and like Joshua was telling us when he was doing that, because I tried to go, we drove to the beach, actually came through a phone car 4 times already, like before we met. Can you just turn around? We didn't even get to trick or treat. We had 2 rows. And got on the golf cart. And the house threw up.
Whatever you are, sir.
All right. At this time, I will call the November 14th, 2022 meeting to order. And like I said, welcome to everybody that's here in attendance. Appreciate you being here. At this time, we will stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We now have the Polk County early college students.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As you know, we try to bring in our students and programs to share with you folks some of the great things that are going on in schools. It's my great pleasure to turn the program over to Ms. Green, wherever she's at. You need to introduce your kids and your teacher and go to town.
Oh, okay, all right. So these are 4 of our kids that are currently in science at the early college. And we have Jack and Eden that are, actually everybody's a junior, right? And Medina and John and Medina. So they're going to go ahead and talk about what they are doing, what they're up to.
And this is Kathleen Abrams, who is our science teacher at the art college.
Okay, Christina.
We're really nice people. It's okay.
All right. Okay, so special thanks to Miss Green and Miss Abraham for making this possible, and a special thank you to the Polk County School Board for making this possible. So, welcome to Project Explore. What is it? It's a project through the NC Arboretum, and what it does is it basically partners with our teachers to reinforce content and provide hands-on learning in schoolyards. So like going out in nature and discovering stuff and working with nature. Next slide, please. So what is our topic? So at Project Explore, we had 3 options when we were presented with it. We had tree phenology, squirrel population density, and bird population occurrence. So why did we choose the bird population occurrence? Well, at the early college, we've always been fascinated with birds. In previous semesters, we worked with cataloging all the species of birds that roamed around our grounds. As you can see, here's all.
This is our list from last year.
Yeah, so our science students in biology and in chemistry spent much of last year observing the birds around the campus and keeping a record of the different species. And we, outside the classrooms, we set up little bird feeders where we are able to see the birds through the window and make notes. And we were so experienced with this that we felt that taking on Project Explore was going to be an easy task for us since we were so experienced in it. Next slide, please. And the details. So once a week, our science students will record birds that they see on campus throughout the seasonal changes. And as you can see, we have many birds. And we will record all that information on eBird, which is an international database. And furthermore, the data will be collected and analyzed. The eBird data will then be available for use by scientists. So us simple college students will be able to contribute to a greater cause. So this not only will this go to the scientists, but it also go to the policy makers and land management professionals.
Who is running Project Explore? So as we said earlier, the North Carolina Arboretum is running this program. They're affiliated with the University of North Carolina system. They're located within Bent Creek Experimental Forest, and they're dedicated to conserving Southern Appalachian Mountains by cultivating connections between plants and people. Their mission statement is to advance our state's future by creatively connecting people, plants, and places through education, design, and economic development. Next slide. Okay. So they're getting funding through the North Carolina GlaxoSmithKline Foundation, which has granted them $1 million to expand the North Carolina's Arboretum's innovative K-12 science education programs to all 100 North Carolina counties. So benefits of this are effectively exploring science outdoors activities, visual, auditory, and kinesthetic learning. We're going to incorporate outdoor time during the day, helps give students a period to balance their energy and retreat from the classroom environment. Outdoor interaction encourages students to find their own fascination in nature, and the importance of nature and all its components is difficult to grasp. The best way to understand it is to experience it and engage with it firsthand. Citizen science is when groups of non-professionals people partake in observing and reporting data to be interpreted and used by professional scientists.
The importance of citizen science. What makes citizen science so important for our community is to get regular people to get involved in the natural aspects of our community. Makes up for the lack of availability of specialists and allows our community to contribute to important NC North Carolina research. The data is reviewed by professional scientists who can then determine population, a new species, and a lost species. What do we get out of this? Out of school, we get 2 free guided environmental lessons and ongoing supports from the North Carolina Arboretum staff. In school, students will receive a grant and a set of binoculars for the science classroom. Our long-term goals. We would like to grow away from Polk County Early College and do outreach programs to teach elementary students so that they can do their own bird surveys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Guys, thank you very much. And I butchered our teacher's name is Abraham.
Oh.
So my apologies to you, but Ms. Abraham, what have you seen in terms of the students? Do they love the bird stuff? Are they taking off with it?
Yes, they really, well, they started with me as a bird nerd. And so I shared that love. And before I was a teacher, I was a wildlife biologist who do mostly bird research. So just to see them opening their eyes to notice the world around them and the details, I think, you know, they find that it enriches their lives every single day to be plugged in, and they are going to be the future decision maker. So this data is going to make a difference in that it's contributed to a data bank that shows us as changes in the environment happen, what happens to the species. So their data is a really important data. So I think that makes them feel really important as observers and scientists.
Well, thank you for being here tonight. We certainly appreciate it. Y'all keep going at it. Citizen science is something that several of our schools interact with, and there are great opportunities out there. But these guys are learning skills that will definitely translate to the work environment as they go on to other careers. It might not be with birds, but collecting data, interpreting information, arriving at conclusions and implementing different solutions and things. That's big. So thank you for that work, and good job tonight, guys. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Ms. Green. I will take the abuse when I get home for butchering the name. Thank you. But you guys are, yeah, go ahead.
I'm gonna say you're certainly welcome to stick around, but we understand. Thank you guys for coming. Next up, we have a service recognition from Mr. Dave Sherman.
Well, is that cat in here somewhere?
She's out.
He's outside.
Mr. Reinhardt, if you would tell. So, Mr. Chair, I know we've talked a little bit about Mr. Sherping's retirement, and I wanted to get him officially out the door before we took this particular action. And I've discussed this briefly with the board, but I feel it's merited that we recognize Mr. Sherping for his service to Polk County Schools. I'd like to read a resolution that I would propose the board adopt tonight, and certainly you guys can make a decision on that. Resolution of recognition for outstanding service by the Polk County Board of Education. Whereas the Polk County Board of Education has been fortunate to have dedicated staff committed to the mission of the district, and whereas a prominent member of that staff is now about to embark on new adventures in a life away from Polk County schools, and whereas this educator has given selflessly of his time, effort, and personal resources to serve the students, staff, and district resources in his charge as teacher, accountability and technology leader, and assistant superintendents of schools. And whereas we, as members of the Polk County Board of Education, wish to extend our utmost appreciation for the work that this staff member has done to make education an effective and impactful experience for the students of our district. And whereas the board wishes to extend our appreciation and sincere best wishes for every happiness in the future to this staff member who is retiring in October of 2022. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Polk County Board of Education hereby recognizes and commends the service of Mr. David Sherping to Polk County students, schools, and his community for 30 years and wishes him well in all future endeavors. And further, that this resolution of appreciation and support be duly recorded and included in the minutes of the Polk County Board of Education November 2022 meeting. And if you so approve, it will be documented on this 14th day of November 2022.
Thank you, sir. Will be the pleasure of the board.
So maybe.
A second.
Motion and a second. I don't believe there'll be any further discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And Mr. Chair, we do have a plaque, if you wouldn't mind giving that to Mr. Sherping, and Mr. Reinhardt, if you wouldn't mind taking a little photo.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate it. Yeah, appreciate it.
Mr. Sherping, we have one more.
Oh.
We call you a Swiss Army knife. So we had one made for you with your name on it.
My name on it.
Let's get over that too, Dave.
Very good.
Thank you all. I've talked to many and many of you over the last couple of weeks or before I retired, and it has been a fabulous place to work. As I said, somewhere along the way, Carl-Ann and I have had almost 60 years of experience working for Polk County Schools, a little over 60 years actually. And it's been just a fabulous place to work. You care unbelievably about our kids. You set good tone for moving forward. You hire great staff along the way to make sure that everything gets implemented. And what we're able to do as employees reflects on the guidance that you provide. I will tell you that today I had the great advantage of attending the quarterly retired school employees luncheon today, which was a lot of fun, actually. It was great to see so many teachers from here from a long time ago. Mario, Carl from Tryon, Karen Killow, you go through Linda Harden, there's the teachers from a long time ago, and we just couldn't say enough about how great a place this has been to work for all of our careers here. So thank you very much. Keep it up and call me if you need me, but I'm gonna be I'll be doing other things for now. So I do appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we moving on to our recognition of the Teachers of the Year, the District Teacher of the Year. Mr. Green, any open comments or?
Just to say that when a teacher is selected as Teacher of the Year for their particular school, I hope that they understand what a profound statement by their coworkers and colleagues that is, that they lift them up to that level and appreciate them for the work that they do with our students. So this is a very big honor for these teachers, and we certainly appreciate all the work that you guys have done for our schools and our students. So there you go.
All right. First, we have from Pope Central Elementary, Nikki Gilreath.
Nikki, who do you have here with you tonight?
My husband, Brian,
Thank you for coming, Brian.
and who's already retired.
Next, from Polk County High School, we have Miss Lori Conant.
I've had the privilege of teaching 3 of your children, and we were discussing how if I teach long enough, I can have the 4th.
Please do. Thank you.
Teachers, if you brought someone with you for families here, please introduce them. Okay, it's okay. I wasn't trying to rub that in, Ms. Conant.
Next up, from Polk County Middle School, we have Jamie Graber.
Thank you for my husband, Floyd, my mother-in-law, Martha, and my mom and dad.
Next, from Saluda Elementary School, we have Miss Stephanie Fletcher.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I brought my husband Todd and my daughter Kirsten.
Next, from Sunnyview Elementary, we have Miss Kelly Bradley. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, board. I think our rate of turnover speaks volumes. So our low rate of turnover. I brought my husband Tony. He's been my cheerleader and he's endured 1 field trip and that was enough.
Then from Tryon Elementary, we have Miss Kelly Welch. And
Ms. Welch couldn't be with us tonight. One of the perks of being selected, and Mr. Ashworth's about to announce that Kelly Welch is our district teacher of the year.
right.
And one of the perks of receiving the District Teacher of the Year award is that they are treated to some pretty high-level professional development at the North Carolina Center for the Advancement of Teaching. And that's where that young lady is right now. So we were the wrong ones to schedule our board meeting in the middle of all that, but certainly we'll make sure that Kelly has that plaque, gets the recognition, and certainly we'll give a round of applause for. Mr. Chair, again, I will just say what a great honor it is to be selected as Teacher of the Year. And we can't express how much appreciation we have for you guys and what you do for students on a daily basis. So thank you for that. And we hope you'll stick around for many, 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 many more years. We do have one more thing to say about one of our Teachers of the Year, Ms. Crum.
Yes, so I'd like to ask for Jamie Graber, stand up one more time, Jamie. So would like to recognize Jamie publicly. So not only did she receive the recognition that she's already received tonight, but she was also chosen as the North Carolina Council of Teachers of Mathematics Outstanding Secondary Mathematics Teacher. That's a mouthful, but she is so well deserving of this honor. She is known for her expertise in the area of mathematics. She's just an incredible teacher in the classroom, and you ask anybody about Jamie and they have nothing but outstanding, wonderful things to say about her. So we couldn't let tonight slip by without recognizing that accomplishment as well, and would ask that you just join me in a round of applause for recognizing her. Great job, teachers. We love all of you. They're all what makes this system so great. So we appreciate you.
Yes, thank you all very much for all you do. We would like to get a picture right outside with Mr. Reinhardt of all the teachers of the year, so we can have that ready for an article, and we will talk about you in the press. So just be ready for that. As Mr. Ashworth likes to say, you're certainly welcome to hang out for the duration of the meeting. We have a lot of wonderful technical changes to policies. You're welcome to hang out for that. But certainly appreciate you being here tonight to allow us to celebrate you and your accomplishments. And thank you to the principals who came and are supporting your teachers of the year. We appreciate them being here as well. But outstanding job, guys, and enjoy. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Yay.
Ladies and gentlemen, the next item on our agenda is to approve the October 10th, 2022 board minutes. Has everybody had a chance to review? And motion to approve.
I make a motion that we approve the October 10th board meeting.
Have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries 7-0. Moving on under instructional, Mr. Green, we have niche recognition.
Yes, sir. And you know, we tend to get some pretty decent ratings from niche, and this is again one more external source. We certainly don't pay them to say good things about us. This comes from ratings from different parts of the community in this area. You can click on the link that's on the board agenda, and you can see we are ranked high in several areas on the niche rankings. Mr. Reinhardt did a great article. I just wanted to make sure that the board was aware. Again, this year, we're rated very, very highly. In fact, one of the national publications, niche has us as the second rated school district in North Carolina, right behind Chapel Hill. And then another news outlet actually put us first, according to niche and some other entities out there. But you know, anytime we have a third party, somebody who's objective, doesn't have any skin in the game, say that this is a great school system, I think it's important to acknowledge that. And certainly in talking about the best place in the state for teachers to work, we're #1 in that area. I never like to tout this one too loud because we always need to make improvements, but safe schools in terms of the number of incidents and issues we have at our school. So just a great reflection of the work that our staff do out there in our community, at our schools, and a tremendous reflection of our students in our community and how much they support what's going on here in Polk County.
Moving on then to the next item under instructional, we have the Head Start annual report. Ms. Kathy Hardy. I couldn't see that over there.
She's in a milieu out there. Ms. Hardy, you're on.
Evening.
Good evening.
I couldn't hear for the crowd out there. I was trying to follow the agenda and see where we were, so I guess I missed it. All right, well, thank you for the opportunity to come and speak to you just a few minutes. Part of our Head Start grant requires that we do an annual report that we present to you. And then there's one more item for me as well. So for the Head Start annual report, we are still funded for 80 children with the Office of Head Start. We maintain still a 5-star rated license with North Carolina Division of Child Development. And I don't say that lightly. That's actually can be a challenge for public schools sometimes to do that. But we manage with the support of our principals, our staff, and you guys as a school board to maintain that high quality. It not only takes money, but it takes energy and it takes commitment in order to do that. So I appreciate that greatly. Our last monitoring review was in November of 2021, and we had no findings.
We are due for another monitoring review, but this time it's the big one. The one in 2021 was the small one. This is the big one where they bring a big team and evaluate us for about 4 or 5 days on site. That is expected this spring or maybe in the fall. Due to COVID, they got a little bit behind on their schedule from the Office of Head Start. So we're really not quite sure. As a program though, I will tell you that we try to stay review ready. So it's not like we're going to scramble and get ready. What we're going to do is just make sure that we have the documentation in place to support what we do with the children. For funding sources, last year we received $738,592 from the Office of Head Start. This year we will receive $800,775. They're pretty good to us. They increase our money almost every year with cost of living. And we serve 80 children. We started way back in 2005 serving 80 children. At that time, the budget from Head Start was about $375,000. So the Office of Head Start's very good to us. That's a pretty good increase over, I know that's a lot of years, but it's still a pretty good increase. Obviously, we think that we give them a lot for their money. They get, you know, a lot from us, and our children certainly do benefit from that money. Our funded enrollment, like I said, is 80. Last year, we served 86. That included children who came to us and left for various reasons. They moved out or, you know, they dropped out of the program, whatever. They do monitor how much we target comprehensive services. And for example, children with health insurance, by the end of the preschool year, 98% of our children had health insurance. And that is through the good work of our preschool nurse. We assess when families come in, whether or not they have health insurance, if they have a dental home, if they have a medical home. And part of our job throughout that year is to help families with resources so that by the end of the year, they have those things in place. Because we all know that there are barriers to learning, and some of those barriers could very well be dental care, medical care, and things of that sort. We are required to serve 10% of our Head Start children, have to be children with disabilities. They have to have an IEP or a 504 plan. Last year, 19% of those children received those services. On the next page, there are graphs of our growth in preschool. This graph shows you where our children started. All of our children receive initial assessments, and then throughout the year, they have ongoing assessments. And when I say ongoing, it means basically daily assessment with anecdotal notes. The teachers set up, it looks like play in our classrooms, but it's not. They actually set up those centers in our play areas to target need areas that they have determined from their assessments. For example, in the block center, it may just look like children are playing with blocks, but if they have a child who does not know how to compare sizes, they have set up that block center so that those children can learn to compare sizes, you know, big, little, tall, short. Very good assessment data from this graph. You can see that our children, almost all of them are in the 90% as far as meeting the expectations. Where we get those expectations is from the North Carolina Early Learning Foundations. That is the preschool equivalent of the North Carolina standards for K through 5. There's a special preschool standard that we go by. It's the expectations that our children should meet before they enter the big world of big school. Transitions are very, very important because our children are already in the public school system. They're already in their home school. We try very hard to enroll our children at the school where they're going to be attending kindergarten. They are already part of that school culture. The parents are part of that school culture. The children are part of it. It's not a surprise to them when they hit kindergarten, like, oh, wow, you know, all the tears with kindergarten that you normally hear about and see. Well, we get that out in preschool because by the time they get to kindergarten, it's just, okay, well, I've already been here a year, so not sure why this is such a big deal. I'm just going to another teacher. We also try to make sure that those teachers are aware of this good assessment data that the teachers have done during preschool so that they don't reinvent the wheel with the children. If a child already knows their colors, already can count to 50, then they're not going to reinvent that wheel with that child. They can move that child from that point on because they already have that assessment data. This is not an approval item, but it is an item for information. This will be posted on our website and available for anyone to review.
And Mr. Chair, I would remind the board, you all know this, but just to reemphasize that point, Head Start is only a portion. We run a blended program, so it's not only Head Start money. NC Pre-K also as a funder. We're the grantee for them. We have tuition paying students as well, and we put local funding, courtesy of our funds and the county commissioners into that program as well. So we actually serve over 100, 130 or so, 140 kids on a regular basis. But just want to make sure we remember that it's not just Head Start, but Head Start's a very important piece.
Yes, it is. It all is so important.
Any questions for Ms. Harden?
I have a question. Have you, so 21, 22, the fall entry, the kids look like a lot of them were at least 60% there or better. Have you seen a difference in that over the last few years with COVID versus pre-COVID time?
That's funny that you say that because I actually had that conversation this morning with my staff who did this graph for me. Last year, when we look at the graph, it was hard even to make sure that we had accurate data because the children were so in and out because of COVID and because of everything that last year, the graph just didn't show this as much, but we didn't feel like it was truly accurate data necessarily. This year, we feel more confident that this is probably a truer picture.
So, I mean, these are all nice, each one kind of progressed. So you're saying that last year's graphs were just, you didn't even have the kind of
you
data
did have
needed?
growth, but we felt like truly the children started so far behind that particular year. We saw last year, and even anecdotally with talking to the teachers, they will tell you that last year they just felt like the children were in a better place than they even were the year before. And this year, we expect to see even more growth. Our children this year appear to be more adjusted to even coming to us. It's natural for them to come to us. The previous 2 years, brother and sister, they were staying home. It was, oh gosh, do we come to school? Do we not?
They hadn't seen other kids.
Exactly. Yes, they had not been around other kids. And this year we're seeing from the teachers, just like I say, anecdotally, that they're just more ready to be with us, that they have those skills. They've been with other children now, whereas the previous 2 years, many of them did not have the chance to be with other children.
So do you see those kids that came from that pre-K class, how are they doing now in kindergarten?
I think that last year, I think we did see an improvement, and I think the next grow round, we will see even more of improvement. But if you talk to kindergarten teachers, they will tell you that for the past 2 or 3 years, the children coming to them just weren't as ready as what they had been in the previous years. Children learn from each other. We'll have children that, for example, come to us and they have very little language, very little. Well, after they've been with us a year, they go to kindergarten, and that language has greatly improved before they enter kindergarten. Well, because of COVID, even the children that were enrolled still didn't have the opportunity to attend as many days as they would have during non-COVID years. So even that language development was not as great as what it is now that we're back in school. And as you all know, language is crucial for being ready to do anything in kindergarten.
Thank you. That's really helpful.
Any other questions for Ms. Hardy? Thank you, Ms. Harding. We will also then stick with you for our next bullet point, which is the Head Start grant carryover request.
Okay, I'm always excited to talk about, I call it my building. It's not really my building, it's everybody's building, but the building at Tryon Elementary where we're gonna put the preschool children, move them up from Forbes. That $1.5 million that's sitting out there to pay for that building. We need to have approval from you to carry that money over from the budget period of 21-22 to the budget period of 22-23. And that's just, the Office of Head Start has requested that we make sure that we get approval for carryover money.
All right, that's pretty self-explanatory. I will be looking for a motion in a second.
So moved.
I'll second.
All right, motion in a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries 7-0.
All right, thank
Thank you,
you.
Ms. Harding.
Thank you.
Next, Mr. Green, we have an overnight field trip request. for us.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. I think you can read in the overview of the trips, they actually put their reasoning, and we asked them to do that, and the reasoning why they wanted to do this particular trip. We have a former wrestling coach here with us if we need to delve into it further, but when these guys go up and compete at a place like Harrah's, they don't get back until very late, and then they got to be back at 5 a.m. for weigh-ins. It's really kind of unfair to expect student athletes to do that. And so as an administration, we certainly support this. We feel like they've done a good job setting things up, and we want to give them the opportunity to be as competitive as they can in these two tournaments. So I did note with another board member that we need to make sure that on these submissions, this was given to me fully in advance of the 6-week requirement, but we're going to have a submitted by date put on these from this point forward so that that's very obvious to you as a board. But certainly Ms. Bean is in support of this. The administration at the district level would also be, sir.
I think it needed a chaperone student ratio.
Ratio, did it need that too?
I didn't see it. But it was-
Nope, it sure did. Thank you. With that amendment, sir, we would.
All right. What would be the pleasure of the board regarding the overnight field trip request?
I'll make a motion with the 2 updates.
I'll second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries 7-0. Moving along under administrative, the first item we have here is the chocolate drop project. Mr. Robert Williams.
So excited to hear about the education. I need to share something with you. I'm Robert Williamson. Many of you may know me from the House Flag Museum. I'm the flag geek. This last month, we had 64 civics class students come through the museum and the Charters of Freedom. I got to do both of those presentations. In March, we had another group go through. So we've had over 100 students from Polk County Schools civics class go through the museum and the Charters of Freedom. I'm impressed. I'm impressed with the teachers. I'm impressed with the students, the questions, the discussions that we've had about the flags, but also more importantly about the Charters of Freedom. They are truly an educational asset that we have in this county. And the civics classes they're taking advantage of it. So thank you for allowing them to do that. I enjoy giving those tours back. So I'm a spokesperson for the Chocolate Drop Management Board, Chocolate Drop Park Management Board. I've got Betsy Burdett from the Saluda Community Land Trust. She's on our management board, and Rosalie Rogers also representing the Polk County at large. Other members include John Vining. We got representatives from the Chocolate Drop subdivision, representatives from Overlook Drive, which abuts the property. The North Mountain Forest Service, Ryan Searcy, is an advisor to the committee to help us with educational forest. We've got a map. Okay, I've got, I think, 10 copies here.
We got maps.
Oh,
I'm sorry. So you said make sure they have it. So make sure they had it.
I'm impressed. Okay. Okay. If anybody else wants to see a copy, yeah. So you pass it to the
Don't have a color printer.
And certainly to the visitors, you will.
Yeah. So it is a public park. After about 12 years of work through Saluda Community Land Trust and Betsy Burdett leading that effort, they acquired through foreclosures and whatnot a number of parcels at the top. Well, those were assembled into the blue outline, the majority of that 46.5 acres. And the town acquired that this last year from the Saluda Community Land Trust for a town park. So Betsy and I have worked on it for about 3 years. She's got about 12 years invested in that piece of it. But we've also built it into the comprehensive land use plan for the town of Columbus. We built it into the comprehensive transportation plan for Polk County with the DOT involvement. The vision is to physically connect the Chocolate Drop Park all the way out to the middle school, all the way out to the wildlife preserve with a greenway for wildlife as well as two-legged participants. So the greenway for future connection starts in Columbus and goes out there is part of the future plan for the comprehensive transportation plan for the county. The 46.5 acres has another parcel, and it's the small Betsy, can you be my pointer?
Yeah.
Point to this, the land trust parcel, the wedge. So that wedge, the connector right there. The title is still held by the land trust, and that connects the 46.5 acre Columbus property to the high school soccer field, the backside of the soccer field. So the property abuts. There's a little creek in there that you cross. The property goes all the way through and it connects to Overlook Drive from the other side of the mountain. And it also connects to another parcel right above Rosalie's head. The P5918 that connects to Chocolate Drop Mountain Road. So there's a couple access points that we have. We had a meeting with Alan Peoples and Deshane Briscoe to talk about the use for the track team. And we talked about using for practice, but long-term for competitive meets. Well, when we look at this, cross-country race starts out with a mass of people. The soccer field is the mass of people. As you come across that connector piece, it narrows down to about 40 feet, then eventually gets down to about 10 feet through the rest of the park, the proposed trails. So the layout is good. It's long enough for a cross-country formal meet course in the future, but that's going to take some grant work and some development work before we do that. What the committee has talked about is an educational forest. Ryan Searcy with the Forest Service has done an educational forest in his previous assignment. Walking trails, hiking trails. We have a subcommittee working on hiking trails with the McCalls. Talk about hiking trails for different levels of ability. We even have a spot up there that's handicap accessible. You can drive up to within 60 feet of a beautiful overlook down Houston Road and see about 11 mountain peaks off in the distance. And the grade is ADA accessible to that point. So we like to talk about handicap access, cross-country trails, we said, places for picnic tables and benches. The views from the top of Chocolate Drop are gorgeous, a 360-degree view. So the flora and fauna there, we think is going to be very educational. The trails, development trails requires grants. And we're preparing different grants, community foundation grants, as well as Department of Parks and Recreation Part F grants, and Wildlife, the Green Growth Toolbox help to get some grants to do some educational development. We've also got the town of Columbus involved. It's part of their budget to budget with the public works crew to maintain the roadways, the side of the roads and the streets. The Chocolate Drop subdivision, the lower road is being developed. There's 2 homeowners building homes along there, and they have deeded those streets to the town of Columbus. So they're all town streets in that subdivision, and we'll be maintaining those and have been so far this year. The Park Management Board that Betsy and Rosalie and I and others are on, there's 7 of us. Our job is not to manage the park, but to oversee the planning and development of a park that will be managed in the future by the town. Our job is to make sure that we conform and comply with the conservation easement that we have with the land trust, to make sure that we do things that benefit the community and not just the town, but our community, our bigger community, which includes Polk County schools. What we'd like to do is have a formal access, a formal agreement to say where our property abuts the end of the soccer field area, that we can actually call that a connector. Why that's important from a grant perspective, it helps us connect from an educational perspective to the high school, helps you access the park very easily from the end of the soccer field from that that buffer area, not across the field, but there's a buffer area there. It allows us to actually highlight that in our grant request that we're connected and it has educational uses in the conceptual plan. Planning a project like this is multi-phase. The first one is to come up with a concept for trails. And then you engineer the trails and then you start developing the trails for all the different levels of ability. In doing that, we've started setting up subcommittees with, of course, Alan Peoples and Shane Briscoe. We've got the hiking trail subcommittee and we've got the management board. So we hope to be able to submit grants starting this spring, grant requests starting this spring. But we look forward to support from the Polk County School System, School Board. So, questions?
Are you asking for an easement from the schools?
You know, no, I don't know what it takes.
I would think it'd be an easement.
Probably. Again, that's your ballpark.
That was actually my question as well.
They're physically connected, but just a formal agreement of sort, and that may be an easement. That allows us to basically say that we are connected to the school property and we can travel back and forth across there.
Where will you access from the other end?
From the Chocolate Drop subdivision.
Right.
So you go up Lone Cypress Trail, which you go down Houston Road, turn on Chocolate Drop Mountain Road, then Lone Cypress is that lower road, the main lower road.
Land drag is this one. Okay, and that's where that's the road where the gate is, right?
There's no gates.
Oh,
When the town was deeded the
okay,
streets,
the
the
gate's
gate's gone. So those are public streets now. So that's the main access point for vehicles. Turn right and go up Majestic Rock Road.
Get up to here and then there is a.
Where I've got that little triangle, that's where the washout is. So that's where
Walk up there.
we've widened it enough to get four-wheelers and mowers through there, but from a safety perspective, we have to work with the Forest Service, EMS, fire department to widen that for emergency vehicles to get through there, which is no problem. It just takes effort to do that. But then the other part is you continue up to Golden Maple.
Which is.
This is a pointer, yeah, Golden Maple, it's all paved streets, public streets, parking along there, hiking trails. With the wildfire we had this couple weeks ago, the Forest Service created a new trail for us.
It's steep.
And it's steep.
short, but steep.
Yeah, but it goes up to the top from the end of Golden Maple. So they actually got up there to fight the wildfire before it actually got to the top. So we have another trail that's been roughed in.
You got it on there already.
And where's the nice view from?
Several views. So look at where the washout is, where that little triangle is. If you go about 50 feet up the road, up Majestic Rock, sort of to the left of that triangle, you're looking down Houston Road and you don't see a house, you don't see a car. And off in the distance, you got Little White Oak Mountain, you got the panorama with about 11 different peaks out there that one of the hikers identified. So we've got a map that shows that. And what we want to do is there's another scenic lookout higher up that road. And then of course from the top, you've got the 360-degree view.
So at the very top of Chocolate Drop, there are no trees.
There are trees. This time of year is the view.
Okay.
So the top of Chocolate Drop is like this. So once you're up there, you know, your views up 26 down Houston Road, Triumph Peak, White Oak Mountain, Little White Oak Mountain, you just make the circle, Hogback Mountain, Brushy Ridge. You see the Warren Mountain, Round Mountain. You see them all.
Got it. So then this would be something we need to have some further discussion about, I assume. And direction from council.
I think the board needs to be able to digest it. You might want to get some more information, progresses, and then come back for a vote to either grant an easement or not.
Okay.
And again, any questions you have in the interim, Aaron's got my contact information. We can chat.
Absolutely.
If you want to, you can meet with our whole management board to get our ideas. We've done a lot of conceptual planning for where we can go with this. The educational aspect and tying it to the school is significant opportunity to see.
Is there a time crunch on that for you for applying to grants and stuff?
The grant applications for Part F are due in March, but we have to start rolling up our sleeves the end of December or January to start pre-qualifying. So the Part F grant is going to be probably the biggest one. We're working with Laura Baird. We've had some expensive time with her on this. I'm meeting with her to actually kick her brains because she's been through the Part F granting before. So hopefully that'll give us a jump start too. Community Foundation grant cycle, their applications are due shortly after the first of the year too. So that's, and again, it's not a showstopper. It's just, it would be frosting on our cake if we could talk about that easement that year.
Any other questions?
Now, from the easement, will people be coming through the Polk County School to get to that location when school's going on, et cetera?
Well, they can, and Brandon Schweitzer and I have talked about that. Brandon, not Brandon. And I have talked. During normal school hours, probably not, because it's a closed campus. And again, we're gonna have to control that. So it's after hours, it'd be weekend access where the public can come in and use the parking lot by the soccer field to walk the perimeter to get in there. The entrance to the park property is probably the gentlest from that end. You really start huffing and puffing when you get about 100 yards into it, but it's a nice gentle access down at the creek bed. It's bottom land in there. That's an easy walk, easy access without getting up into the high part of the mountain.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Be in touch here. Okay, thank you. And thank you, ladies. Yes, thank you all. Moving on to our next item under administrative, we now have 2022-2023 budget resolution. Ms. Debbie Levels.
Okay. As with other years, we have the budget resolution. The first page is for our state public school revenues of $18,994,000. And the second is the local expenditures from the county and some capital from the county. Some of these will be changing, of course, throughout the year, but this is, starting out, you get a lot of stuff and then it'll kind of gradually slow down. I know in state, we haven't gotten our developmental day money yet, and that should be another 150-some thousand. I know that's not been dropped. Usually they're kind of slow on that one. So it's usually December or so before we ever get that one. I've tried to not put anything in here until I know exactly. Until I actually have something in hand. Federal programs is $4,686,000. Some of this is still ESSER money. 171 and 181 is the majority of that ESSER money. So each year this will be, a lot of it will be gone this year and then through next year. The child nutrition, $2,313,000. Then on local capital outlay, we have some all the capital outlay money, and that actually comes pretty much from the county, but part of that also comes from state because some of it is we have to put our school buses, like our activity buses, in this one too. The money for the yellow buses actually comes from state, but we have to post it in our fund for. And the other part, there's also a bus in here for activity bus that we got a grant for that we're replacing. We got 2 last year. We got another activity bus coming. That was a grant through the Volkswagen settlement. We applied for, we didn't know we'd get it, but I said, try. So they actually gave us another bus this year. So that's great. That's $115,000 for activity bus. Then our total other
is grants. Usually most of our grants, our Head Start is in this one and our NC Pre-K. And the rest of them, Mom's Community Foundation, different kinds of grants that's not given to us through the county, and it's not given to us through state or federal through DPI. So this is other types of grants. And also what I do each year, any carryover from a prior year that we haven't spent that year is in this part of it too. So that is all of them. So we just have to do our budget resolution, and this will be the beginning of the budget. From now on, there'll be amendments to this throughout the year and until the end of June.
Mr. Chair, all I would add to that is, in typical fashion, North Carolina rarely has a budget approved by August. I can't recall a year when I've been superintendent where we've had a budget by October. And so the recent adoption of the biennial budget was nice. I think Ms. Loveless has done a good job getting it all entered in and getting it ready to go. But as she said, this is our starting point, and you guys are very aware of the amendments we have to bring in when we receive more funding or when things change purpose code. We'll certainly bring that back to you. This is very similar, other than the ESSER piece of it, it's very similar to what we brought you in past years, as our funding hasn't changed tremendously over time.
Any questions from Ms. Lovelace? Or no, we're looking for a motion and a second for approval.
So moved.
A second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries 7-0. Moving down to our next item, we have the PCHS construction update. Dr. Brandon Schweitzer.
All right, good evening, everybody. It's hard to believe that this marathon that is the HVAC update is approaching a year and a half now that we have been working through it. And as marathon runners will joke, the 26.2 miles, the 26 miles was easy. The 0.2 is what gets you. And the 0.2 is what's getting us a little bit right now, is closing in on the finish line. We are at a point where we are down to our final payment remaining on this particular project. We still have our retainage in reserve to close out any lingering issues that may be coming up. Right now, what we're continuing to process through is commissioning. Commissioning is basically making sure the equipment they installed is by engineer design. It's what they were supposed to install and is functioning to spec and properly. And then there's some minor punch list items. One of the biggest ones that we've been battling with, which you may have heard a little bit about, is our 2 new air handlers that are on top of our gym have caused some minor leak issues. We've basically ruled out that the roof is not what's leaking. It is something inside the units themselves with insulation. Our construction team has been very responsive to us in terms of addressing those issues. Met with them all through the weekend. The project manager himself actually came up in the rain and was on the roof trying to figure it out on Thursday as the rains began this past weekend. So pleased to see that they're being responsive to that, but that has caused some leaks that have transpired and gotten all the way through to our gym floor a little bit. So definitely want to make sure we take care of that. We're not interested in trying to get a new gym floor and work through that process. But they've been responsive to us. So as of right now, that is where we stand with the Polk County High School HVAC update. Hopefully next month, I'll be telling you we are closing this out.
Any questions for Dr. Schweitzer?
Brandon, you say the leaks inside the air handler itself?
So what they've rolled out, they've water tested the gym roof to make sure that they can roll out, is there some kind of penetration issue in our roof structure? There is not. So it's passed water testing on that end. What it's down to is something they have, and I'm not an HVAC specialist, but something they apparently have not sealed correctly in the ductwork that's causing condensation on the inside and then leading to dripping on through.
So it won't happen during heat, but just cooling, right?
Well, the reason they believe it's a sealing issue and with some condensation stuff is a lot of it's attached to when it rains. So condensation is a part of it, but it's not causing a big enough issue. Supposedly there's some external seals that are not sealed up correctly on the units themselves. We're only seeing the issue when it's raining.
Other questions?
So are they going to be responsible for any damage to our?
I was actually gonna add that. So Dr. Schweitzer, I think, has done a pretty good job making it clear to the project manager that if we have to have continued discussions about leaking on the gym floor, that they would certainly be responsible for replacing it. And I think that gentleman is completely aware of that. So I have the utmost faith that that's been communicated well, just like the floor where they've come in and taken their fair share, maybe then some on the floor that they need to repair. The same conversation's been had with them about the gym.
So how much water? Gallon or gallons?
Gallons. We've been catching it in 55-gallon drums. It's drips at a time when it rains, so it's not coming through gushing. But enough of a sustained rain, and you get a lot of water that comes through on the gym floor. That's a hardwood maple gym floor, so that's wood is porous. It's like a sponge. It absorbs it and then it moves, which is not good. So we want to make sure that that gym floor dries out, get everything sealed up as much as possible. We're going to end up delaying our refinish project probably and coming up over the Christmas holidays. You don't want to sand and level a wood gym floor that has moved slightly, because then when it does dry out, you'll end up with pits and divots the other direction. So we're going to delay that refinish until we get the roof structure solved.
So how is that going to affect the basketball teams playing if it's pouring down rain?
It actually will not affect the playing surface right now, but as of right now, they have a deadline to meet. They are well aware that the first home game is coming up right before Thanksgiving. So he's got roughly 8 more days or so to try to figure this out and get it sealed up.
All right, any other questions?
Are they doing the hall floor over Christmas? All the floors in the hall?
The
throughout the
floors
hall?
are set to actually begin demolition and sand out this coming week for Thanksgiving. Yeah, so there were some
They'll get it all
delays.
done?
They're going to get the upstairs portion of the building, the second story, completed during that time, polished out. There were some delays with the crew that we hired on to do it for COVID. Some issues went through his particular team. That's all residing now, and he's going to be able to get started next week. So they're going to do that hopefully in 3 phases: upstairs, and then after that cycle and hit the downstairs. They should 3 to 4 days to do the downstairs, and then hit the cafeteria gym side as the final phase.
All right, well, thank you, Dr. Schweitzer. We will be staying with you for the next bullet point as well, which is the Charter Elementary School update.
So unfortunately on this end, I don't have a whole lot of new news to bring you guys, other than last month, you all approved the contract with our architects. So I've left that as links, the 2 agreements, also along with the drawings that were initially approved by the facility subcommittee. Where we are right now is the architects have it in hand finalizing the technical specs on all of the drawings, getting it in preparation to put out for bid. So I spoke with our architect late last week. They now have the information they need to be able to move forward. We're actually set to meet with them, I believe, in 2 weeks, just before the Thanksgiving break, to talk about the process for putting this out for bid.
All right. Any questions here for Dr. Schweitzer? All right, we will move on to the next topic, which are the policy updates, sticking with Dr. Schweitzer. First reading of policy updates.
All right. So the North Carolina School Board Association offers updates aligned with either legislative changes and or case law that has caused us to take a look at some of our policies and make sure that we align those. We have a sizable chunk of policies that our policy subcommittee was able to review and go through. And so what we're going to do tackling these is I'm going to hit some of the highlights for some of the ones our subcommittee discussed in terms of wanting to modify or adjust, hit some of those areas. The good news is the vast majority of these that were put forth are all technical changes, again, aligning to legislative updates or to any particular case law that may change some technical wording. Mr. Fagan has had a chance to review all these as well. So we'll go through, and I want to hit just a few of these. So we'll go ahead and start off with policy number 1510, 4200, 7270. It's a batch set of policies there. What the policy subcommittee elected to do was to remove the temporary COVID restriction language that was associated with that policy and then adopt the rest of the policy as is. So again, that particular language associated with any of those temporary COVID measures that were in place for the last couple of years, our policy committee removed those. Before I go too much further, I want to remind everybody that while our committee's had a chance to work through this, this is our first reading. So everyone will have a chance to spend more time reviewing each one of these for second reading and final adoption next month. 1710 and 1720, we simply updated the appropriate contact information for each one of those. 7302, there was a modification that was done to remote participation by board members. The subcommittee set a limit for that to no more than 5 remote participations by any given board member. So that number of 5 was set by the policy subcommittee. Number 2310, there was public participation at board meetings. That makes sure that we set aside time during a meeting for public input at the board's discretion. So again, that allots that time during a regularly scheduled meeting once a month for public input. My favorite one out of this entire batch, policy 2410, a policy about policy development. So I love policy about policy. So if adopted 2410, the reason I'm going to bring this one up is it actually rescinds 3 of our other policies. So we were joking earlier, we may be adding one, but at least we're taking 2 away. We're netting 2 in this. So 2410 basically rolls up former policies 2420, 2440, and 2450 into a singular policy. So those 3 would be rescinded. 2430, another one of note, it makes our electronic board policy our authoritative source. Make sure I come on down up here for the public piece. It makes our electronic board policy the authoritative source related to board policy matters. It also still allows for the public to come in and request hard copies if they would like of any particular policy that is out there. Coming on down to policy 4050. This one related to children of military families. I thought this was a particularly good one and one of note. It adds a clause that guarantees protections and streamlines enrollment for children of military families. Basically, it says that as a school district, if we have a military family that should come in temporarily into our district, that there wouldn't be a blocking of that enrollment for any of our discretionary admission or any of those things. You wouldn't charge them discretionary admission fees. Again, that's specific to children of military families.
And that's only for our area only, not outside of our district, correct?
That'll be any military families moving into this particular area. Moving down, policy 4110 actually addresses it is the state required added pneumococcal conjugate vaccine for children under the age of 5. The policy simply updates that and aligns it to the state legislative requirements. It allows for the normal exemptions due to religious causes, all those kind of things that all of our vaccination requirements have allowed. But that was a adjustment to legislative mandate. Further on down, I want to get to policy 4700. There's another policy of note for student records. This one in particular, there is a clause towards the end that is specific to military recruiters coming into your school and what directory information they can request. So at first blush, it adds a requirement or a mandate that says that military recruiters can receive any school issued emails for students to be able to contact them. That part is fine. When you go up above it, it does adjust the language related to student records to establish that student emails now become a part of directory information. For federal law, emails are not included in that. However, local school boards can add that in as a part of directory information should you wish. So this is one that might be a topic of conversation, just kind of looking through it. The one that is required is the military portion, stating that if any of the recruiters come in, those student emails can be released to military recruiters only. But the other part is an optional addition, making student emails a part of directory information in general.
Dr. Swartz, I made a note on that one. It said you can't opt out.
Yes, sir.
So that just wanted to point that out. I don't remember exactly what that was. Is that what you're talking about as far as opting out of the other email?
So you can opt out of either one of those. So as a parent, we have to put out notification to all of our parents in our district about what sources we release information to. This would be one that on on the legal side that we have to allow for military recruiters to have that access. However, again, that's the part of the opt-out part where you as a parent can say, no, I would prefer my child not be involved in that particular piece. The reason this whole directory information part is important is because while we've provided notice to families, they may not realize right off the bat that their child's email address through a public school has now been labeled as directory information. Currently, it is not. So yes, there is an opt-out leveling there, but it's an important distinction between those two issues.
And is that to the military too, opt out?
I believe so, yes, sir. Just making that
It is, period, if you want to opt out.
So
They don't have to do the military disclosure, but the importance of directory information is under FERPA, the school's free to release directory information without parental consent or student consent. And so that's why it makes an important issue. So as a policy matter, the board should think about whether you want student emails addresses to be able to be released in general to just anybody, or where you want to limit it at least to military recruiters, which is what the law change is. It's just that NCSBA, the policy service, kind of took it a step further and threw that under the general directory information section rather than just limiting it, excuse me, to military recruiters. See what I'm saying?
Yes, sir. So who do we release this information to?
Anybody do it?
So if a college asks for all the student emails, addresses, we send that to them?
Under our current policy, not their emails. So under current adopted policy.
Would be
not
their street address.
Yes, sir.
Phone number?
Yes, sir.
Can a private individual ask for that information?
Yes.
It's directory information, which means it's available to the public.
Just like a phone book would be.
Sometimes you get fishing expeditions that you can tell it's just marketing information. So that generally you try to avoid that if you can. All right.
Next policy of note is policy 5030. This one has to do with community use of facilities. The board policy subcommittee elected to remove the qualifier that the state board had put in that facilities cannot be used by for-profit organizations. We removed that particular qualifier and said that yes, we can have for-profit institutions utilize our facilities under our facility usage agreement and our policies and procedures we've set in place related to fee scheduling. And then the final piece to it inside that policy is that it would fall subsequent to all school use groups, nonprofit. So it sets a hierarchy of use. Basically, a for-profit organization would have to work entirely around our school schedule for if we were doing a play, we were using that facility for anything, and then followed by nonprofits that may want to use it. They basically come last in line to be able to use our facilities and would fall at the highest level on our fee schedule. So that is how that particular one was changed and adopted, or not adopted, but adjusted.
Concrete example of that would be school doesn't need the auditorium, but Rotary's got signed up for community chorus. And then Dance Dynamics wants to come in and use it at the same time for their dance recitals and those things. Because Dance Dynamics is a for-profit, your Rotary Club would give precedence over that. But certainly, I think the subcommittee did not see a need to do away with all for-profit groups, knowing that this is a small community. There aren't many places for people to do things. And we certainly have enjoyed a good relationship with businesses and agencies over time. But we've got a pretty good facilities use agreement in place, and we felt like, it was important for us to be responsive to the community with that hierarchy in place.
Sort of in line with that is policy 5210 that has to do with distribution and display of non-school related materials. There are very specific guidelines that are surrounding school personnel and non-school materials that are displayed or posted within a school. This particular policy was important because it originally had an exemption for any group that may be coming in and using your school facility. So we removed that exemption. The policy subcommittee did and said that basically if you're going to come onto school grounds, you should follow under the same criteria and guidelines about non-school related material that may be posted. So the subcommittee felt like that was an important fact to put out there to have them fall in line with what our current policy was in guiding those non-school related materials. Moving on down just a little bit more, policy 6220. This one has to do with operations of school nutrition and services. The original policy recommended to us set and established a specific cutoff for how much a student or family could charge for meals. Once that cutoff was hit, it then was incumbent upon the school system to determine what their procedures were going to be after the fact about if the child had not essentially paid their bills or the family had not paid their bills, how you were going to address food service or meal delivery to that particular child or family. Our policy subcommittee felt it was important in line with how we've handled things in the past to remove that altogether and say that we've done a good job building relationships with our communities and working with our families to try to work around that. We've never been, I think, interested in being bill collectors or on the other hand of things, withholding food from anybody. I know my time as a principal, we found all kinds of different avenues to try to make sure that we fed kids. So our subcommittee felt it was important to not have that rider in there as recommended to us. So that particular portion was removed altogether. Moving on down a little bit further under policy 6560. This one has to do with disposal of surplus materials. Some monetary figures were set for the disposal of those materials, specifically materials under $30,000. Once you get into that, there are some dollar amounts that were set. I'll go ahead and remind you a little bit about kind of how Polk County Schools utilizes some of the materials that may be surplus. The most common ones for school districts that carry large value amounts typically are technology or vehicles that may be surplused out. For us, we don't often have either one of those that we're dealing a whole lot of surplus with, and typical to fashion, we get our money's worth out of whatever product that we are buying. So by the time it is ready for surplus, there's not a lot of value that, to be quite frank with you, is left in those particular products. All that being said, I understand why the State School Board Association would want to put something out there and set these marks. I know there are districts, for example, with technology that may be rolling over, say, laptops for their staff every 3 years. What's reasonable to think that in 3 years' time, if you bought a laptop new, that 3 years later, it might have some decent value to it. Multiply that across a district of, say, 500-600 employees. Well, suddenly you've got a sizable chunk of change in your hands for surplus. That is not necessarily a problem we've ever had, but nonetheless, it does set those figures and dollar amounts and guidelines for how that surplus property. Policy 7100, recruitment and selection of personnel, adds a little bit of new language that under some very specific circumstances, a job posting might not be required to be posted. It has to do with lateral movements and or promotions within a school system, basically meaning that if that is going to be the intent, that particular job does not necessarily have to be posted publicly. So that's a little bit of a language change in there. That is an option, is not a requirement. Moving on down, another one in line with protections for military leave families, policy 7530. For military leave, has to do with if you have any staff member that might be taking short-term military leave for, say, something like National Guard duty. They're allotted a certain chunk of time that is given to them anyway for that short-term military leave. If they were to exceed that time for some particular reason, this particular policy protects that family from having to then burn up annual leave time or sick leave time, any of that accrued paid leave. So it's another protection for military servicemen. The remaining policies on down are a lot of technical and language changes all the way through to the finish. I wanted to highlight just some of the major ones that involved a lot of discussion that we hit in our policy subcommittee. Again, kind of rounding out this discussion, I know it's a whole lot of material. There's a lot of information here to digest. This is first reading, so we've got plenty of time to review these, and we definitely encourage you to ask any questions, or if we can help in any way, let us know.
Mr. Chair, we would defer to Mr. Fagan for any further comment on sheriff policies. I think the vast majority of them are technical changes that reflect a change in the law. And certainly want to extend our appreciation to the policy committee. Those of you who sat on that committee know what a wonderful and fun process that is, but it is important to make sure that we're putting policies in place that that we agree with as a Board of Education.
Any questions? Nobody have a comment? Okay. And through your policies, visitors to the schools, the safety policy, school safety you talked about first, and what's it, a mask on buses, basically, because CDC dropped that requirement. You removed the COVID-related temporary provision that was in those policies, which is understandable because they were temporary, and they're only geared toward COVID. COVID is listed as a communicable disease, at least novel coronavirus resulting in death, or not resulting in death. But so you have a couple of policies in your manual about communicable diseases, one of which relates to employees, and you have one policy that you're going to pass on tonight that talks about that. I suggested to Dr. Schweitzer that it seemed like to me you might want to look at those communicable disease policies in the future, student and employee ones, and incorporate some language. I mean, I personally don't think we're through with COVID, and I think the language that you took out really was not directory or binding. I understand that you don't want to talk about COVID after what's been 2 years, but I think you need some policy that says at some point you're going to follow the BHHS and CDC guidelines so that you're following science-based recommendations about communicable diseases in the future. So you might want to kind of incorporate some language that's more general, doesn't talk about a specific communicable disease, but in general that. I just don't want to see the board saying, somebody come back later and say, we have another, Ebola outbreak. We have something that creates a pandemic situation. I think you want your policies to reflect that. We're going to be addressing that in accordance with health requirements. And there was one other thing. I don't know that you really decided anything about the directory information, did you? On the email, student email. I mean, maybe that's not a danger. I don't know how student emails are used.
Well, I can tell you from, not that it matters from an administrative perspective, I think you probably have to go along with the military side of it. I mean, that's out there.
That's required.
And so aside from that, I would say that, we would feel more comfortable not having student email addresses as a part of the information. They already can get their names and their addresses and those things, but I would think we could leave the email alone.
I would love to see that.
Yeah, absolutely. So certainly
Have for the military only.
Certainly, if that's the pleasure of the board, we can make that note and you can say with that particular specific policy amended to that degree. So what I hear you saying in terms of your discussion right now is that you would like to have that release of student email to military only and the rest of it not be considered directory information.
It would be really easy to add to that little subset. Substance.
Thank you, Dr.
The other thing Dr. Schweitzer and I talked about, I think it would be, I think you're going to address the volume that the committee has to deal with going forward, because when these things get released fall and spring from the policy association, but that's a lot for y'all to go through. It just seems kind of overwhelming for y'all to really digest the essence of these policies, which is important for you as board members to know. And I think Brendan's got some good ideas about giving it to you in a format that's, more side by side. Is that not right? Would you want to comment on that? I thought that was.
Yes, sir. Yeah, this particular batch was a lot. I think it's safe to say our district administration have been through a lot this past year and had a lot of different irons in the fire trying to tackle some things. So this particular batch, had a lot of policy updates we were catching up The bad news for our policy subcommittee is we're going to need to get together again sometime soon and hit the most recent batch, which has just been released. The good news is it's significantly shorter list. It's not nearly this long. It's a fraction of this list. And I'm looking at doing a different format that's going to allow you to see the side-by-side real-time changes in terms of what you get access to and be able to digest this a whole lot faster. Once we get past this pain of getting caught back up and we get on cycle, the School Board Association release their updates in the spring and the fall of each year. We'll then be on cycle to be able to tackle those much more digestible and small amounts at a time. We just got a little bit of catching up to do right now.
Folks, this is an actual item for approval first reading of these policy updates, provided the amendments we've just discussed. We'll be looking for a motion in a second.
I would like to see us hold off on the first reading so I'd have time to read these. I haven't had time to read over all of them, all the new updates and all that. So I would like for us to postpone it until next meeting for the first reading.
So that's a motion to postpone.
I would make that motion to postpone to the next meeting to give us time to look over all these policies.
Help me understand. So what does approval of a first reading do versus the second reading?
I would think that the first reading would actually give us the option to do exactly what you're saying, is to go and be able to review everything and take a look at it. And then we can approve on second reading once everybody's up to speed 100%.
So if you want
It's
to make
not
changes.
final until the second reading. It's not a final adoption.
Essentially what it does, the first reading says, this is what we're going to look at versus it could move or change. I mean, it sort of makes it a snapshot of what's here. I mean, we just made a potential change, right? Would that be included in the first reading?
Yeah, as soon as you, yeah.
Okay. So the first reading allows us to read over, look at it, discuss it.
Right. You have time between the first and second reading.
Right.
Yes.
That being said, I did have a motion on the table to postpone. Do we have a second for that motion? Then I would entertain a motion to approve on first reading.
I so moved with the amendments that we've talked about tonight.
A motion, do I have a second?
A second.
Is there any further discussion?
So this accomplishes what you were,
As long as if I see something and we need to change it,
right.
we have the option to do it.
Absolutely.
And so-
Yep,
It's like
Because I don't
you
want
can't
us to-
discuss something until it's been.
You can amend it at the second reading
Right.
if you need to.
Can you amend it and pass it same night? Oh,
Yes.
Sure.
I think we can get done.
I mean, normally it's minor amendments when you do
Right,
that.
right.
It's not anything real substantive, but still you can do that. Yes.
Any further discussion? And all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries 7-0. Dr. Schweitzer, we will stick with you for the NC School Capital Lottery Fund release request.
I have to say it's a bit nerve-wracking to see your name 4 times on the agenda. So this is our state capital lottery funds release request related to our track resurfacing project. An item of note as we go through this, this is the total cost of the track project as it stands. This is the amount that we are requesting from the NC Lottery capital funds. The reason we are requesting so much less is that we received a K-12 facilities grant for roughly $104,000, which equates to the difference you see right here. So that is including that amount. So we're not taking this total $374,000 roughly out of that capital release.
And I think as a board, we've had that discussion that we were going to use that money that was slated for athletic facilities. That's gone, and we were going to use our lottery capital to do the rest of it.
Yeah.
And certainly we're happy with the quality of the track that's out there. We've had to do a couple of minor things, but I think the company did a great job.
Questions? This will be an actionable item. We'll be looking for a motion in a second.
So moved.
A second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries 7-0. Moving on to our next bullet point, I'll go to Mr. Green with the VW transportation grant.
So two things I wanted to make sure that I pointed out to you is we actually need to take action to accept the grant. And I'm assuming that we would like a $311,173 to buy an additional activity bus, with the understanding that since that original estimate, guess what's happened to cost?
It went up.
It's gone up. So we could very well see another $10,000 to $20,000 in capital have to be spent. I'll take a $10,000 or $20,000 activity bus any day. So I'm hopeful that the board will allow us to accept this funding from VW and get ourselves another activity bus. I talked with our transportation director. We understand exactly which bus we'd like to retire. And so we need to continue to upgrade our fleet when we can with money that is not on the backs of our local taxpayers. I think that is huge.
All right.
So much.
I'll second.
All right. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries 7-0. Mr. Green, we'll stick with you for the Safe Schools grant.
Yes, sir. This, as a board, you allow me, when I work with the Department of Public Instruction, to submit grants for safe schools. We've done it before in the past. I'm very proud to say and happy to say that we did receive $324,580. The bulk of that will go for SRO payments. The state allows for us to provide $44,000 per SRO through this grant. It's something that we work with the county on. The county has been kind enough to provide an SRO at the high school level. That's one of the requirements of the grant, is you cannot receive funding for a high school SRO or a secondary SRO, but it does allow this funding to be used for middle and elementary. So coupling this money with the extra overage the county has to pick up, as you can imagine, $44,000 does not cover the full cost of employing an officer when you consider benefits, training, all those other things. And so the state considers that additional county and local money here at the district level in kind. So again, the bulk of that Safe Schools grant is going to be for SROs. We also received a school social worker allotment with that. So in addition to Lindley Foster, we're going to be able to hire an additional social worker, which I think in terms of what we're seeing and hearing out there from mental health, substance abuse, other issues that are going on, that's going to be very much needed over the next few months and maybe years. And then also some safety equipment money, money that we can spend on electronic locks, that we can spend on renovations, material supplies, a server for cameras, those different types of things. So in terms of relative share, if you look at the districts and the grants that they receive from Safe Schools, your size kind of dictates how much money you can really get from that. So the state was very kind. I think we got a pretty good chunk of change, and certainly wanted to make you aware of that and see if you had any questions about that funding.
Questions for Mr. Green?
How do we decide, you mentioned different devices or things that are used for safety. How do we decide that?
So typically what we would do is take initiatives that are quarterly safety committee. You know, we get together with emergency services, sheriff's department, other emergency agencies, Bobby Arledge with emergency services. And we meet quarterly. We come up with priorities as an administration. Dr. Schweitzer works through the Safe Schools office in North Carolina to figure out, what do we need. One of the things that we use very often now in terms of trying to secure our buildings is electronic locks. They're expensive. They're expensive to install. And so rather than using our local capital money on that, this is money, quite frankly, that we've already spent to get these things done. And so now this helps us backfill so that we can use our local money to attack other issues. But our primary goal has been to use it on things that are easily justifiable. Electronic locks, easy to justify. Having a server so that you can record your camera footage from your security cameras, easy to justify. And so those are the things that we picked, Mr. Parsons, to make sure we use for that grant. It's a good question.
60,000.
It's about 66,000, yes. And you can eat that up very quickly. Average server nowadays, to put stuff on, Dr. Schweitzer can correct me if I'm wrong, but is in the $10,000 to $15,000 range.
That's a cheap one.
So what?
That's a cheap one.
Yeah, cheap one. 20 grand if you want the Cadillac.
Wow.
And we compile a lot of footage because we have a lot of cameras.
Other questions for Mr. Green?
Certainly, sometimes the money is out there. We have requested different things be done. We're still waiting on that. People are behind on construction. They're behind on getting the electronic materials to us. So, we're moving as fast as we can. I understand from a public perspective, sometimes that's frustrating. When we've said these projects are out there and scheduled and they're still not done yet, we're just as frustrated, if not more so than the public, but we can only move as fast as we can move. So hopefully those things will get done very quickly.
Thank you, Mr. Green. Moving along, is there any old business?
I have none, Mr. Chair.
How about new business?
Well, certainly I wanted to bring this up. I have been in conversation with the Polk County Transportation Authority here locally to have a shared position. In other words, a driver for them that could drive during the day, a CDL driver, and then turn around and drive in the afternoon or maybe even the morning. Let's say that person could come in, do a morning route for us, spend the rest of their day with PCTA, or go into PCTA, do routes all day, and then do an afternoon route for us. That would require that we pick up some of the full-time benefits costs. I'd like to work with them to continue to see what kind of dollar figure we're talking about, but I think that shared type of employee might make a very good regular route driver for us. And as you know, we need it. So just want to make sure the board is okay with me proceeding in that fashion to get an MOU together and run it back by you for approval.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, sounds good.
That's something when you get to it.
One more, I'll let you know, we are monitoring the weather in Saluda for tomorrow. We hear there's a chance that one of the peaks might get a little, freezing rain. I do want to remind the board that we constantly monitor those things. Mr. Ridings, as you know, is very, very good. I want to thank him for submitting the grant for the activity bus. Lambert does a lot of things behind the scenes that people are not aware of. The other thing he does is to call me up when we get that kind of weather report. And, hey, I'm going to do this. What do you want to do? Where else do you want to put people in the county? So we are prepared to monitor the roads at 4 o'clock in the morning, and we'll see if there's any frozen precipitation that falls on the roads. Right now, the temperatures are not expected to go below 35. We feel pretty good about that. As you know, anything can happen in Saluda. We're going to be fine down the mountain, in my opinion, but I have been in Saluda when it is raining in Hendersonville, raining down here, and it is snowing to beat the band in Saluda. Even some places in Tryon, when you go to the top of Melrose Mountain and places like that, it can be bad. So we will monitor those conditions and make sure we make the appropriate calls for safety questions.
It says 26 is the low tonight here in Columbus.
Yeah, in Columbus, but then by the time it starts raining, what's it going to be?
I don't know.
Okay. Ms. Gibbs, I can assure you that I have lots of experts that will call me. You don't have to worry about that. Lots of them.
Mr. Graham, I'm gonna make a motion tonight to move school back the calendar 2 weeks, to begin school 2 weeks earlier. And I want to hear your comments before I ask for a second.
Mr. Chair, what I might recommend we do administratively is to charge administration with coming up with a calendar that does just that, a sample calendar to bring back to the board so you could see how that would truly play out over the course of an academic year. I feel like I'm obliged to remind you there is a calendar law that exists out there. Certainly counties around us, Henderson, Rutherford, Henderson just adopted one, Rutherford's adopted one, Cleveland, other places are continuing to do that. From a what's best for kids standpoint, I can assure you getting exams done before the holidays and aligning our schedule with the community college is absolutely the right thing to do for kids. But I think before we made a motion to do that, it might behoove the board to have a view of the calendar to make sure you know what days, what's that mean for staff, what does it mean for parents and families, and then also with the board understanding that we've already adopted the calendar for next year, so that would be a change, and some people have made plans. There are people that plan, not me, there are people that plan 2 years out, 3 years out with vacations and things like that. So I want the board to have a full picture of it, in my opinion. Now, we can do whatever you tell us to do. You're our boss. So
I think we would need to see what it would look like.
I'm willing to wait.
So what I hear
want
is
it to begin
2 weeks, at least 2 weeks earlier. So what we'll do, and Dr. Schweitzer, you can help me remember this when we talk to Ms. Hammond and Amanda up there, is we'll develop a calendar that starts 2 weeks prior to where we're used to starting and allows us to get exams done before the holidays. That might cause some compression, and some of the times, like 2 weeks at Christmas is going to be a conversation if you compress the calendar like that. But I think the benefits would outweigh, that type of challenge. So certainly we'll develop that calendar. I'll try to shoot it out to you when we get that done so you guys can look at it, have some consideration, and come back to the December meeting ready day to potentially take action if you so wanted to. So I want to make it clear, the superintendent is not making this request. I made it. We'll make that clear.
Do you have any idea, just scuttlebutt or whatever out there in greater state community as to whether the threats of the legislature have any real?
So I was with a group of superintendents. I was with a group of superintendents last Thursday. One of them had mentioned that they had heard some rumblings about funding and the restriction of funding. As you know, we talked about this. The sanctions that they would normally put into a law like that they want a school district to follow and a local board of education to follow, their sanctions are typically dealing with the superintendent, right? Take the superintendent's pay away, the state doesn't pay that anymore, so that burden falls on the local district, or to rescind the superintendent's license or a principal's license and those things. None of those teeth are in this calendar law. There's no specific sanction listed there. So Mr. Fagan and Counselor, I think it's all speculation at this point, what could really be done. I think it's problematic for them to suggest they would remove funding from any district, because again, you're going to tell me that you're going to take Cleveland County's money away and Polk County's money away and not Transylvania County's money away. I mean, that's going to be difficult, I think, for them to justify. I also think there is a decent number of legislators out there who have sided with their local districts on this is the best thing for kids. And given the fact that upper legislative leadership won't even let it be discussed, it always gets parked in the Rules Committee. It's never brought up. I think there are some legislators who are frustrated with that. So to answer your question, I have not heard of anything concrete that I would be overly concerned about. Certainly Cleveland, Rutherford, other places who have done it have gotten maybe a phone call from a legislator, but nothing else has been done. That's where we're at with the information I have, sir.
I think it would be hard for them too. I was just curious.
Well, I think it starts to butt up against where does the legislative power end in terms of determining a local calendar, and where does your local board of education begin? It's a great question.
Should have never been changed.
Thank you.
We stayed here for 3 years knowing it would be best.
3 years. We said.
Okay, I mean, I'm just using 3 years.
Right. And I think that's the frustrating piece, is that you've even got local legislators, people who are representatives at the state level, who have told their boards of education, go ahead and do it. I'll back you if I can. And so I think people are frustrated with this argument that is really, there's not a lot of merit to it. If you're simply sliding the number of days, then your businesses, your tourism industry, those people can adjust, right? They can. And colleges already go back. Well, that's part of their workforce too. So I don't see that same calendar imposed on universities. And so at the end of the day, I'm not sure what the real argument is about. However, as a superintendent, I certainly can't recommend that we do something that violates any law.
But we don't have to prepare to do hard time. That's what I wanted to know.
No, but Mr. Green may.
What I would never want to do is to endanger any of our administrators' license, because that is something as an educator you need to have to be employed. I worry a lot less about my own personal well-being than I do our schools. And so I just want to make sure the board's aware that that would need to be a board action, not an administrative action.
You still have to pay out the contract.
Now, on the flip side, I think you as a board can argue to any student, parent, family, this is what's best for kids.
Absolutely.
I have a question. So if we started 2 weeks earlier, I know there are like dates that instruction cannot begin by. Do those move back? Do we set those? What happens?
Absolutely. We set our own instructional calendar.
Okay.
So I think the one, Mr. Coble, there may have been a sense that this might be a question. So we may have looked at a calendar such as that.
Like this beginning of the year.
Second week of August, staff would come back, maybe 3 days in that second week of August, depends on when the first day falls. And then you start kids, that would also put you out by Memorial Day. So again, you would have June and July, like we were always used to have, would be complete, and you'd have a couple of weeks in August. That'd be your 10 weeks of summer, June, July, first 2 weeks of August. Versus now, which is the end of August, that last week, and then you push 2 weeks into June. It would probably shorten the first semester by a few days. You'd be looking at an 84, 85, 86 day first semester, which we could live with that. Again, you take a couple of days on holiday break. It might mean that kids are taking exams when you're used to the 20th of December, for example. That's a date that typically people are used to being out of school. However, I think the benefits far outweigh the issue. Or that issue.
And that doesn't affect playing sports.
It actually is better. We start our athletic season before kids go to school.
Yeah, we do.
We're playing volleyball, we're playing football. I mean, Dr. Schweitzer can tell you as a principal, it's maddening that you're out there at a football game before kids have ever stepped on the campus. It's maddening. And the kids will tell you, that to me is the biggest thing. The kids will tell you that, why can't we do it this way? Mary Green at the early college, we adjusted their schedule so they could be on ICC schedule. Well, ICC adjusted their schedule back because the schools couldn't do it. So if we can get Rutherford and Polk, the two districts that ICC serves, then we can make a calendar that works for everybody.
All right.
Duly noted, Mr. Chair, and we will take that under advisement.
Is there any other new business?
Do not think so, sir.
All right, then, for informational purposes, we had the Veterans Day holiday on November the 11th. Thanksgiving breaks coming up November the 23rd to the 25th. For your review, you have the October Head Start Policy Council minutes, October Pre-K monthly report, the Pre-K financial report, monthly financial report, and the monthly credit card report. We also have NCSBA offered optional board training at the NCSBA office from December the 8th through the 9th, and board training once again at the same office, December the 12th through the 13th. At this time, we have arrived at public input. Ladies and gentlemen, we have one person on our list, so there will be no need to amend our policy this evening to bring others to speak. And I'm going to apologize in advance.
It's okay.
I'm going to butcher your name if I try to pronounce it. Can you tell me your name, please?
Tanisha Twigaki.
All right, thank you very much. You have 3 minutes. We do not address any individuals or teachers or anything along those lines, but 3 minutes and the floor is yours.
Well, I don't have any input whatsoever. I'm just here to introduce myself. Born and raised here in Polk County, went to Polk Central and moved out of state with my husband, and we're like an empty nester now. So now I'm like back home, like, I'm here. How can I serve? So I've been calling to schools, offering my time and my services. I have an organization that's been in existence for over 10 years. We work with women and girls. We love empowering them about beauty from the inside out. We feel like there's a lot of things happen to our young women, not only young women, but even women our age, that we just don't really understand our God-given identity. And so that's my mission, that's my purpose, is to mentor young girls to let them know that they're beautiful just the way they are, and get other women along with me to make that happen. Growing up here, let me know when 3 minutes is up. Growing up here as a pastor daughter, and my mother, she still pastors in Hendersonville. It was tough. And if it wasn't for my mother, I don't think I would be the woman I am today, because I was able to look up to her and just get to know who she is and travel with her. And so I got to see more than just Polk County. I got to see the other places. So I'm just here to serve. That's the sum of everything I'm saying. I'm here to serve. And what that looks like is helping other women and girls experience the love and the peace and the joy I found within myself. Through my hardships and just being resilient. And of course, God, first. So yeah, I'm here to serve. And just to introduce myself, I've never been to a board of education meeting, and this is very interesting. And a lot of this stuff is over my head, and but I'm here to just say hello. And if you need me, I'm here, and I'm looking forward to connecting with Polk Middle School, High School, Elementary, wherever you need me, and just to be one of the change makers in the county. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. That is our only public input for the evening. At this point, I would entertain a motion to go into closed session for purposes of personnel and attorney-client privilege.
Mr. Chair, I would like to recognize Commissioner Moore for being here tonight. Thank you, Commissioner Moore, for coming and sharing in the wonderment. And of course, Jolene, welcome. It's good to have you here. Thanks.
Thank you, guys. Thanks everybody for being here. Do we have a motion?
I make a motion.
Motion is second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries 7-0. Ooh, that's good.
Marathon. I should put you back.